Hi, and welcome on News Now, Belmont Journal daily news show and community update. I'm your host, Parterre Ecological. The Land Management Committee for Lone Tree Hill has a plan to remove invasive plants. We meet with Miles Connors, manager at Parterre Ecological, who explained to us how to achieve this important goal for the conservation land.
I'm Miles with Parterre Ecological. We specialize in invasive plant management and native restoration projects, and here we are at Lone Tree Hill in Belmont. Parterre Ecological specializes in invasive plant management and native restoration. We have a staff that is able to identify invasive plant species in the native environment and appropriate treatment options. Those treatment options can vary from manual hand pulling, mowing, and also herbicide application treatments. The long-term idea in working in any of these natural plant communities is to think about the native plant community that comes after we're removing these invasive plants. So when we're looking at doing a restoration such as this one at Lone Tree Hill, there is a historical significance to the way that we approach it, and especially if it makes sense. Now, when we look at Lone Tree Hill, historically we're looking at open meadow and pasture land, right? And so we're not going to go back to that. So we're really looking to, reforest certain areas that have been overrun with invasive shrubs, while also leaving like native open meadow areas open to the public. There's an established open meadow area here at Lone Tree that we will continue to keep open. But some of these other woodland areas that were overrun with invasive shrubs and vines, we're removing those invasive shrubs and vines and reforesting with native trees and shrubs. Any restoration project should start with a well-organized plan. And this particular project at Lone Tree Hill began with us writing a land management plan for the committee. The land management plan is essentially a narrative of the invasive plant species and the native plants that are within these project areas at Lone Tree, which is approximately 119 acres. So we initially walked the site and we divided the site into open meadow areas, into forested areas, and we really started to divide those into these different environments. Perched on the top of Lone Tree Hill is even a vernal pool, and you wouldn't necessarily expect that. But, in this plan itself, we really break up into, what are the invasive plants in this particular area and what are the natives, and how are we going to manage them? One of the things that the committee asked for was that what are some of the things that volunteers can do? We currently have a volunteer on site that specifically has permission with the landscape committee to do buckthorn cutting. And what we've talked to this individual about is cutting the buckthorn at 12 inches above grade. So he's coming in, he's identifying the buckthorn, he's cutting it at 12 inches, and he's making these neat habitat piles, stacked piles in woodland areas. And leaving that 12 inches allows us to come back at the appropriate time of year and do a cut and dab herbicide application directly to the stump. We wrote all about this in our land management plan that was approved by the landscape committee. And then, and with that, they then started to look for funding. And that funding came through grant opportunities as well as the Judy Record Fund through Belmont Habitat. The land management plan itself, again, really speaks to that narrative of invasive plant management and native restoration on site. We identified the native species and the invasives on site and proper management methods. We then broke that down into what the volunteers can do as well as what a private contractor should be doing on site. So we come in at targeted times as well. We really think about early spring being a time that we're managing garlic mustard. As we move into, late spring, it's a time of black swallowwort. As we move into midsummer, it's when all of the bittersweet and buckthorn and multiflora rose really come into flower and are treatable. So it's really looking at a timeline over the course of the season to think about the proper time of managing these invasive plants. And the long-term view of that is what we are going to be using over the 3+ years of restoration on the site. We're going to be able to refer back to and use that plan in order to direct our own restoration work. One of the invasive plant species here at Lone Tree Hill is black swallowwort. And black swallowwort is a very aggressive herbaceous vine. We find it in high and dry meadows, and we also find it in woodland openings, such as where we are right now at Lone Tree. And this particular plant has become a bit notorious about the fact that it sits in the same family as our milkweed. And of course, the milkweed plant is a plant that we all know as the host plant to the monarch butterfly. So one of the reasons why we're managing out black swallowwort from our natural environment and repopulating common milkweed and butterfly milkweed as well as swamp milkweed is that we are looking to remove it in the aspect of being able to provide better habitat value for the monarch caterpillar. And we will be doing a foliar herbicide application that will specifically target black swallowwort. Herbicide use is a tool in our tool bag for our work. Everyone who uses herbicide should be a licensed pesticide applicator in the state of Massachusetts. Our staff actually undergoes a great deal of education in order to keep that licensing. And we're also extremely respectful to the natural environment as well as the applicator when we're doing our work. So it all starts from this place of being safe as an applicator and also safe to the natural environment. It is the most effective way of reducing invasive plant species from the natural environment. We would have to come in here and cut repeatedly over and over and over again in order to wear out the carbohydrate and the storage of the energy of the plant in this buckthorn. It would take many years in order to accomplish. Whereas with targeted herbicide application on this buckthorn, you can take this out within a year or two. And then we can really think about what does this space become. Are there small thickets of things like our native summersweet, Clethra alnifolia? Do we plant a native oak tree in the center of this area, which are surrounding us in this environment? So what do we really think about restoring this area with? So typically on our projects, we are on site for 3 to 5 years. And then even after those 3 to 5 years of regular, integrated work and restoration, we will come back and we will be doing maintenance and monitoring. So we'll walk the site and we'll identify invasive plant species and either hand pull or do a treatment. So on this particular site at Lone Tree Hill, this is a long-term investment for the community of Belmont.